Good morning, everyone. Um, we'll give everybody a couple more minutes to get settled here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Let's go ahead. Thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Becky Hathaway. I am from Tango Card. I'm the Director of Employee Experience there. And today we're going to do a quick talk about how to create an employee rewards program that can work for you and some of the parameters around that and how you can be most successful, especially in these times when most of us are working from home or remotely and things are a little different than they normally would be. All right. So, we are going to talk about how to build this rewards program. Just like anything else, the first step when you're looking towards building something like this is to gain leadership buy in. We all know how that can go. Especially right now, budgets can be tight. But one of the best things you can start looking at is employee engagement and how you want to wrap this up in your culture. If you are somewhere that has a culture of recognition or a culture of engagement, or you want that to be a focus for you, these rewards programs can be a really great way to get that started because there's multiple ways you can use that. Um, and, look at things like SHRM studies that show that there's a 52% increase in productivity with incentives. So, this can be a great talking point for when you bring this to your leadership team. And finally, of course, again, budget constraints. We know that that's a concern. And a lot of these programs, especially depending on how you do them or what tools you use, the only budget that you need is the actual incentive that you're sending. So there's no overhead cost there other than a little bit of labor on your end. So, doing your research and figuring out how you want to make this happen and what that cost is going to look like. For example, at Tango Card, we use our own API, so we don't have cost associated with that. And so the only cost is the true reward gift that people are receiving. And then that's the only thing we're paying out of pocket. It's a really great way to keep people engaged. Um, Once your leadership has decided that this is something that they're interested in, that this is going to work for you, start talking about parameters. What are the rules around this eventual policy? What's going to look like? Um, think about the why. There's different reasons where you can have these kinds of programs, and we'll actually talk about that on the next slide and give some examples. But why do you want to do this? Is this peer to peer? Is this for managers to give real time, bonuses? Is this for morale? What is this for? Um, and that will help you determine the rest of your parameters. Things like who is sending and who is receiving. Again, if you're doing peer to peer, that's pretty consistent. But if you're doing, this for morale, is it HR? Is it operations that's sending these out, or is it managers? So really thinking about that, and again, spelling it out and making sure that people understand the why behind it, so that the who is really represented there correctly. And then the last two are the limits you want to think about with your parameters. What are you wanting to spend? And what are the quantities that people are allowed to spend? Is this something where teams have a budget? Or if this is a peer to peer program, is there a limit to how much people are allowed to spend, especially if it's company funded? You're going to want to really spell these parts out because these are the things that I find employees really have a lot of questions around. Well, if it's peer to peer, do I get to send 10 a month or can I spend as many as I want? Things like that, things to think about, and really put yourself in the employee's shoes to figure out what kinds of questions they're going to be asking. Because again, these programs are really fantastic, but they're also fairly new concepts. So a lot of employees are going to have just a ton of questions. So really make sure that you go out of your way to spell out parameters, probably a little bit excessively at first. It's not going to hurt anything to overdo it, and then you can scale, of course, as it adjusts and as you're seeing people use the program. Um, and then, of course, I imagine I'm speaking to mostly HR, benefits, payroll professionals. We all want reporting. So I always talk about reporting as setting up with your parameters. So as you're looking at, you know, what parameters you're setting up, that should be your reporting function. And if you need something in your reporting function that's not set in your parameters, then it probably should be. Definitely something to consider as you're setting that up. And then, of course, for payroll purposes, you're going to want to know what exactly is going on there and why. So you've set up your parameters, you've set up all of your reporting structures. Now it's time to send out that company-wide communication. This one we find is not a one and done kind of scenario. Of course, you want to have a dialogue. You're going to want to have this on your intranet, wherever you keep company policies. But we find that, really focusing on this in new hire orientation and kind of repeatedly bringing it up in company meetings and having it somewhere in a live setting can be a really great way to communicate it. So, for example, when I onboard new employees, I always tell them they should be sending 2 to 3 rewards in their first week in our peer to peer program. That not only gets them engaged with the program and keeps them, kind of gives them a task to do from the HR perspective that's a little more fun, but it also allows them to see just how active our peer to peer program is. And that's a really great way to engage new employees to say, look at what we're doing in this culture. We're talking the talk and walking the walk. We're not just doing one or the other. Um, and again, keeping that company wide communication as people have questions. Create an FAQ because there's going to be, especially if this is a new program for you, a lot of questions about what people are and aren't allowed to do. And then, of course, the last is always monitoring. We monitor ours by using this reporting function. I use it quarterly and really looking at, what people are spending and why. Do we have any heavy spenders? Are we seeing any negative trends that we need to adjust? And this will also, of course, impact this is a year to year basis for you, how you write that policy for the next year. Maybe there's adjustments that need to happen. But one of the more interesting things that may be a little less obvious in the monitoring space is that this can be a way to monitor other aspects of the business that may not necessarily come up in other ways. One of the things that we've been able to do with the monitoring of our program is to say, oh, so and so receives a ton of gift cards. That's fantastic. What are they doing? Oh, they're overworked and we need new headcount on that team. It's a great way to monitor other things in the business that you may not always see, and track those kinds of trends. Or maybe we're seeing a need for a product on our own end or some sort of tool or solution because someone's doing it manually and they're constantly getting recognition for it, which is fantastic. But it shows gaps that we might be able to fill otherwise. So monitoring it and then, of course, adjusting as the years go on with what you've learned in that process. So now that we've built our program, how do we use it? At Tango Card, we actually have 3 different tools that we use. The first is a peer-to-peer program. We use this with a company called Tiny Pulse. But this is our peer-to-peer program. This is every employee can spend as many gift cards as they want. They can send and receive as many as they want. The one catch is that it is peer-to-peer. So you can't send one to your manager, and your manager can't send one to you. There can be no chain of command sending in the peer-to-peer program. We find that people tend to spend roughly 10 gift cards per month as an average. And we do a $10 gift card, and that's the limit. The best part about this program is that it shows up in our TC Kudos channel, which is a Slack channel. So people can see why people are getting this, and it's very public. It's a great way to keep employees engaged, especially across teams. The next one is bonus and incentives. We use continuous feedback models. So this is a really great way for managers to say, okay, I want to recognize you in the moment rather than waiting for a payroll or waiting for a bonus cycle that may be 6 months out, but you want to recognize that employee right now. This is a great way to do that. And what we've done is give every organization a set dollar amount that they can spend. And anytime they want to send something, they let the HR department know. And we send that employee a gift card in real time, usually the same day. It's usually the same day or the day after. So really you're focusing on that continuous feedback in a really, really positive and impactful way that people are going to remember. And the last piece is perks and engagement. So this is that drawer full of Amazon gift cards that we've all seen that's like hidden behind reception, right? We've all seen it, we all know it. That's for, the morale events, that's for anniversaries and birthdays. Right now we're using it again to keep people engaged while remote. We're sending things like reward delivery or restaurant delivery gift cards so that people can grab lunch for that brown bag lunch session that they're attending, or grab drinks for happy hour with their team, to really keep people connected right now. And that's been a really fantastic way to again be connected right now, but also just in general. It's a really fun tool, and it gives employees an opportunity to have a little bit of fun again with our own product, but in a way that is really personalized and can be a very unique experience for employees. So that about wraps up kind of the initial setup of what you want to do for that and what we can use these kinds of rewards for. I believe we have 3 minutes. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to help. I know I have Megan here from the marketing team. She's got some information to share as well in the chat. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will answer as many as we can.
Yeah, so Becky, the first one that came through was about taxes. Surprise, surprise. So,
Yes.
do employees have to pay taxes on gift cards according to payroll? They are taxable to the receiver. So, how do you handle that?
Yes. So, of course, all of these are going to be reported as taxable income on employee W 2s. And that's why that reporting piece is so crucial. We actually treat our taxes differently based on the type of gift card an employee receives. So, if it's a peer to peer program, we don't want the employees taxed on that. And we will do a gross up every quarter for payroll to say, this is how much you received. We're grossing that up, and we as a company are absorbing the taxes there. The same with our morale type budget. But what we don't do is for bonus and incentives. Those are actually taxed at an employee level. We still add them as a non payable item to paychecks, but the employee will be responsible for the taxes on those.
Awesome. And then a couple that I know we often get. So, with peer-to-peer incentives, how do you monitor and prevent abuses by employees?
Yes. So again, that's the reporting function is going to come in huge handy for that, because you can see who's sending and why. We have a program where you have to put in a why. You can't just send somebody a $10 gift card with no message. So what is that message? And are we seeing a trend? If Bob sends one to Sally and Sally sends one to Bob and that goes on and on forever, clearly there's a concern there. We need to talk to both of those employees. But what we tend to see is that by making our peer-to-peer program public, there's a level of kind of self-monitoring that happens there when you know that the entire company, including the CEO, has visibility into what you're sending and why. So it encourages people to really do it for reasons that make sense and are, I would say, legitimate.
Awesome. And then probably our last question. So, how much do you budget for the different reward uses, like peer to peer versus spot versus birthdays?
Definitely. So obviously things like birthdays and anniversaries, you kind of know how much you have to spend per employee, and that's pretty consistent. What we have found is really great for us has been for the peer to peer, we do $100 per person per month is our rough budget. Obviously that adjusts a little bit, but that's been really consistent and a really great way to not spend what feels like an excessive amount, but is really, really helpful. And then with the program for bonus and incentives, that's really going to be a company to company plan. If you don't have another bonus plan, we would incorporate what would typically be like a 5 to 6% bonus per employee into each organization's headcount. But again, that's going to be a very, very custom decision for each employer based on the way maybe you have bonuses structured.
Awesome. That is all the questions we saw. So, if you want to
Okay,
wrap us up and send us off, Becky.
fantastic. And I know, again, Megan has posted some things in the chat. If you're interested in scheduling a demo of our self service product, which is what I use, there's a demo form there if you're interested. And we've got a couple other resources on kind of building these programs and what it can look like for building a handbook of employee rewards. Again, those are in the chat if you're interested in them. Oh, and we're also doing a reward link. If you sign up for a demo, I apologize. If you do sign up for a demo, you will receive a reward link using our Rewards Genius product so you can see what it actually looks like from an end user perspective.
Awesome. Killer. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you have a good rest of your perks day.
Yes, thank you so much.